I'm from rural South Ireland, and the fields around here are full of fairy circles. For those who don't know, fairy circles are discolored patches of grass or rings of mushrooms. You get dared to run through these on the regular, and said to get in terrible luck if you do. There are fairy forts as well, which are much bigger, lumpy, hillish things that are closed off by steep dips in the ground. You're warned by pretty much every rural Irish person not to step in one of those. If you do, you may not step out. And of course there are the stories of the will-o'-the-wisp that might come and lure you to your death, or the banshee who will appear and terrify you to death with her scream if you find a random comb on the ground, missing some of its teeth. Yep, grandparent stories around here are no joke, and often lead to sleepless nights. My story, though, was with a fairy circle in the field across from my house. I used to walk my dog there, and I knew the fairy circle was in the far right edge of the field. We used to have a cabbie, kind of like a treehouse, beside it, and swing over it on a rope swing. And we would taunt whoever took a swing that they might fall into the fairy circle and have a life filled with bad dreams and bad luck. But there was never anything really sinister or frightening about the seemingly harmless circle of overgrown grass and rocks. Until this one day, when I was in my early teens. I was out walking my dog, taking no notice of the circle at first, but then I happened to glance over at it and was shocked to find the largest black dog I had ever seen standing dead in the center of the fairy circle. It seemed as though its back was to me. My dog was looking towards it too, but to my surprise, she made no move to run at the huge dog or bark at it, which she would usually do. She seemed to ignore it, or not see it at all. This was the first of many things that put me on edge. That and the fact that this dog looked like it could eat both me and my dog with no trouble. But since it didn't seem to notice our presence, I kept walking towards the left side of the field that opens into the next. This was a big mistake. When I glanced back out of growing discomfort, the dog was standing on its disturbingly long legs that resembled horses' legs. It was like these horses' legs were attached to the body of an oversized German shepherd. It was out of the circle now, too, closer than before. And I could see now that what I had thought was the back of its head was actually its front. But there were no markings of a face or eyes or anything, even though it seemed fixated on us. I turned and ran for the next field, terrified that my rather old dog might not keep up, and each time I glanced back, the thing was increasingly closer. Its ears perked up like a dog called by its owner. I reached the break into the main road outside the field, and when I looked back, it was gone. I couldn't see it anywhere. I haven't been back to those fields since. That's it, that's my story. There are places we know to avoid because of them. They don't have villages, but they do have dwellings. I would bother my uncle to show me them because he knew where they were, but he always said no. Then, one day, we were on the land hunting caribou. He had told me to keep an eye out because we had ventured close to one of these areas we were supposed to avoid. He had his binoculars out, and as he was scanning the horizon, he suddenly froze, fixated on a point in the distance. After what felt like a long time, he handed me the binoculars and pointed me east. He seemed worried, and I was nervous when I took the binoculars from him. I looked through them, and I saw, in the distance, the body of a caribou, moving slowly up a hill. I could tell it was dead, and it looked like it was being carried. The only problem was I couldn't see anything carrying it. There was just nothing there, like it was floating. The body would stop every 100 feet or so before it would start slowly moving up the hill again. We watched it for a bit to make sure our eyes weren't playing tricks on us before we finally decided to get out of there. Towards the end of our residency in my childhood home, the house itself was completely different in feel and comfort. If I could pinpoint the start of the weird things happening, I would pin it here, on a summer night when my grandma and aunt visited us randomly. I opened the front door to let them in, but before closing it again, I noticed something attached to the doorknob with rubber bands. I pulled it off and took it inside. When I examined it, I found this scentless, light green, putty-like substance inside, with what appeared to be yellow, red, and black little seeds or balls. At first, I thought it was crap, but it didn't smell. Hell, it might have been, I don't know. Anyway, it was wrapped in several leaves and bound with twine, which had then been secured to our front door with a rubber band for some unknown reason. No note or anything, just that. I brought it to the kitchen where my family was seated and asked them what they thought it was. When I told them where I found it, my aunt started acting really paranoid and my grandmother looked really upset. My aunt said something about this being bad and she told me to take it outside and pee on it. Yeah, pee on it. I shook my head and laughed. Why would I do something like that? But, not allowing this thing to not get peed on, she took it from me and went outside. My grandma said something in Spanish to my mom, who rolled her eyes. When my aunt returned, my mom was thoroughly disgusted with my aunt and told her to knock it off with that. That our house was protected by God and that superstitious crap like that wouldn't be allowed. Since then, my brother and I started to see figures in the hallways, doorways, and outside. Things wouldn't feel good in the house like it used to. And my cousin lives in that house now, and I can tell you it still doesn't. Then, in 2004, at 3-something in the morning, my family and I were preparing for road tripping to the Grand Canyon. We live in SoCal. Everything was getting packed away in the kitchen, and I was asked to go take out the garbage. I walked outside. It was the kind of dark where it's too early for morning still, but too late for night, and it was freakishly quiet. But I thought nothing of it at the time. Our trash cans were located on the side of the house in the backyard, halfway to the gate. If you stood at the side of my house looking towards the gate, you would see a hedge to the left of the gate that goes up to your waist. Across the street is another house with a driveway light installed, one of those blaring white security lights. Anyway, I got to the trash can to throw away the junk when I looked over towards the gate. That's when I saw it. Whatever it was. I could only see the outline of it because the security light was in my eyes, but it was the most smooth and round head I've ever seen, connected to very slouched shoulders. At first, I didn't know what I was looking at, just an odd shape, the same height of the hedges. It wasn't until it moved, silently and slowly towards the bottom of the hedge and to the neighbor's yard, that I saw the head. I was 14 at the time and just stood there, waiting for more movement or sound. After about 1 minute of not hearing anything, I stepped backwards until I was able to sprint back towards the kitchen door. I don't know what it was or why it moved so silently, but it wasn't much longer before we moved out of that house. My brother and I were having recurring nightmares of someone telling us we were unloved and unwanted, and that was too much for my devout Christian mother. But the strangest part was the feelings of sadness and regret I felt on our last day there. I thought I would be happy to leave, but I wasn't. About 2 weeks ago, I went hiking on a trail that is well known, so seeing other hikers or mountain bikers is not uncommon. While I was walking up the trail, I happened to come across this girl who seemed kinda out of place. Like, she's not quite dressed right for hiking, but not totally in the wrong attire either. As I get closer, about 10 to 15 feet, I call out, "Hey, how's it going?" Half to let her know I was behind her so I wouldn't surprise her when I caught up, and half because she was really cute. She looks back and says, "Not bad. How about yourself?" I catch up to her and say, "Not too bad. Great weather for hiking." As we walk up this trail, we chat, and she's a very giggly person. We continue talking and walking for 10 minutes or so when she stops me and says, "You want to see a meadow I found before? It's kind of off the beaten trail, but it's really pretty to see." Now, normally I wouldn't follow some stranger into the woods for who knows how far to find a meadow that may or may not really be there, but I'll admit I was charmed by her. She was very attractive and fit my idea of a perfect girl. Also, she was short, like 5'1" or 5'2", so I wasn't really afraid of her. I said, "Yeah, sure, we've got plenty of daylight to get back. Let's go." She throws her hands up and goes, "Woo, let's go!" as she grabs my hand and pulls me into the woods. As I bumble through, she is ahead of me, dancing through the woods, hiding behind trees and peeking out the other side and laughing. Thinking back, I don't know why it never occurred to me that this girl was gracefully bounding through the woods like a deer while I'm stumbling through like a drunken prom date. So we've been going through the woods for close to 20 minutes now, and I can see the trees start to thin out. And beyond that, I can see an empty field about 20 yards away. So I pick up my pace and catch up to her. I'm about 6 feet from her when she says, "Come on, just past this tree." She looks at me and steps behind the tree like she had been doing during the entire wood walk. So I run to the tree and say, "Let's see if we pick the same side to jump out. Ready? Go." And she's gone. There is nowhere this girl could have gone once past that tree because on the other side was an open field. I've never had a cold spike of fear hit me so hard before. I was freaking out, my heart was pounding, hair on my body standing on end, and cold sweat. I was scared so bad I was frozen for what felt like forever. Then I heard her giggle. I turned around and ran so fast that Usain Bolt couldn't catch me. How I found my way back to the trail is beyond me, but even after I hit the trail, I didn't stop running. I ran back down the trail until I started seeing black specks from lack of oxygen. Since then, I've told this story to only 4 people, only one of whom believed me, but more in a, "Yeah man, totally, I believe, now can we get back to being normal" kind of way. It really happened. Thanks for watching, and thanks to the Redditors who gave me permission to read their stories, the links to which are in the description below. And special thanks goes out to the anonymous subscriber who bravely shared her story with me. That's the first story in this video. It was truly creepy and I really enjoyed reading it. As this channel grows, I'm hoping to share more and more subscriber stories with you guys, so if you've got them, please email me. My email is in the description. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you're new. And until next time, this has been a visit from your Scary Fairy Godmother.